As we step into 2025, the world is bracing for massive changes. From the political landscape to economic shifts, it seems like nothing is set in stone. But what if we told you that the stability we've come to know in Western nations might crumble? What if countries like France, once pillars of democracy and power, fall into chaos? And how will Asia, with its booming economies and complex geopolitics, fare in the midst of this global storm? The year ahead could bring about political shifts that will redefine the future of the world. Stay tuned as we dive into some bold predictions and uncover what could be the most tumultuous year in modern history. But before we go further, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with all our predictions. Now, let's talk about how political landscapes across Europe and the world might be headed toward unforeseen collapse. As we move into 2025, there's a rising concern that several Western governments, especially in Europe, may face a deep political crisis. Among them, France stands out as a potential candidate for significant upheaval. The country has long been a symbol of stability, democracy, and power. But recent developments are indicating that its foundations might not be as secure as we once thought. First, let's take a look at France's political landscape. The country has faced a growing sense of disillusionment with its leadership. President Emmanuel Macron's government, though once seen as a beacon of hope for the European Union, has struggled to maintain public trust. Macron's reforms, including changes to labor laws and pension systems, have sparked widespread protests across the nation. These protests, primarily led by unions and grassroots movements, have escalated into violent demonstrations in several cities. The anger isn't just about economic policies, it's a deeper reflection of a dissatisfaction with the political elite and their inability to address the real concerns of ordinary citizens. The French government has been criticized for being out of touch with the people, with accusations that the ruling class is more concerned with maintaining its position of power than addressing the needs of the public. This disconnect has led to a rise in populist movements, where far-right and far-left factions are gaining traction. On one hand, you have the extreme right-wing National Rally, led by Marine Le Pen, who capitalizes on fears of immigration and the erosion of French identity. On the other hand, the far left is represented by figures like Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is advocating for a complete overhaul of the current political system. Both sides are pushing for a dismantling of the traditional establishment, which could ultimately lead to the destabilization of the country. Adding fuel to the fire is France's growing economic problems. The country's unemployment rate, while lower than in previous decades, still remains high, especially among younger generations. In addition, the rising cost of living, coupled with stagnant wages, has led to widespread discontent. France, once a country known for its strong industrial base and cutting-edge innovations, has seen its global competitiveness slip. The economic crisis is further exacerbated by France's struggle to balance its public debt, which is rapidly growing as the government continues to spend on various social programs, healthcare, and military commitments. But perhaps the most concerning factor is the erosion of trust in democratic institutions. In recent years, we've seen a rise in populist sentiment across Europe, and France is no exception. As people grow increasingly disillusioned with traditional politics, there's a real risk that we could see a shift away from democratic governance in favor of more authoritarian regimes. The political elites, rather than addressing the underlying causes of social unrest, have turned to more repressive measures, which have only fueled public anger. The rise of social media has played a significant role in amplifying political discontent. Movements like the Yellow Vests, Gilets jaunes, gained massive traction through online platforms, organizing protests and strikes that brought the country to a standstill. These movements, though often leaderless and decentralized, have forced the government to react in ways that have sometimes been heavy-handed, leading to clashes between protesters and the police. The growing mistrust in mainstream media, along with the spread of misinformation online, has made it even harder for the government to maintain control over the narrative. Looking ahead, it's not hard to imagine a future where the political landscape in France, and even across Europe, becomes unrecognizable. The rise of populism, the growing discontent with traditional political elites, and the economic crises facing many countries could all contribute to a perfect storm of instability. We could see more countries follow in the footsteps of France, where political unrest, economic hardship, and a loss of faith in democratic institutions lead to a shift away from the established political order. But France is not alone. Other Western governments are also facing challenges that could bring them to the brink of collapse. In the United Kingdom, for example, the fallout from Brexit continues to wreak havoc on the economy and society. The political division within the country remains as deep as ever, with no clear resolution in sight. The United States, too, is grappling with a deeply polarized electorate, where trust in the government and institutions is at an all-time low. Both sides of the political spectrum are becoming more entrenched in their views, and the gap between the ruling class and the general public continues to widen. In Germany, a key pillar of the European Union, there are signs of political instability as well. While the country has historically been seen as a beacon of economic success and political stability, the recent rise of far-right groups and the growing dissatisfaction with the government's handling of immigration and the European Union's policies have led to increased tensions. The next few years will be crucial for Germany, as it faces the possibility of a serious political fracture that could have ripple effects throughout Europe. So, what does all of this mean for the future of the Western world? If the political collapse of France and other Western governments were to occur, it could signal the end of the post-World War II order that has defined the global political landscape for decades. The European Union, which has been a cornerstone of European integration and stability, could face existential threats as member states turn inward, grappling with their own national crises. In such a scenario, Europe could experience a period of political fragmentation, with countries opting for isolationist policies rather than working together to solve common problems. Moreover, the rise of authoritarian regimes or populist governments in Western countries could have significant global implications. If democracy is in decline in Western nations, it could embolden authoritarian leaders around the world, further destabilizing the international order. The growing influence of countries like Russia and China, who are not bound by democratic norms, could see them take advantage of the chaos in the West, reshaping the global balance of power. This political turmoil would also have significant economic consequences. The global markets are already vulnerable to shocks, and the collapse of key Western governments could trigger a financial crisis that would affect countries around the world. With trade agreements in jeopardy, supply chains disrupted, and economic uncertainty at an all-time high, the world could experience an economic meltdown of unprecedented scale. The world is entering a new era of uncertainty, and the collapse of Western governments, particularly in France, could be the catalyst for widespread global change. The coming year will be one of the most pivotal in modern history, as the very foundations of the political order we've known for decades are called into question. Whether it's France, the United States, or other Western countries, the possibility of political collapse is becoming more and more likely. As we watch these developments unfold, it's important to ask ourselves, What does the future hold for the Western world? And how will this shift affect the rest of the world? In the coming months and years, we could see a reordering of global power. As old institutions crumble and new forces rise to take their place. The question is not if these changes will come, but when. And when they do, we must be ready to face the consequences. As we look toward the future of 2025, the situation in Asia presents an equally turbulent and uncertain picture. The continent, home to over half of the world's population, is a melting pot of cultures, economies, and political systems. While some Asian countries have been economic powerhouses, others face deep political crises and security challenges. What's becoming increasingly clear is that Asia is on the brink of its own version of chaos. With conflicts escalating, political instability brewing, and economic uncertainty threatening to destabilize the region. One of the most alarming developments in Asia is the ongoing tension between China and Taiwan. For years, Beijing has been vocal about its desire to reunify Taiwan with mainland China, considering it a breakaway province. Despite Taiwan's democratic government and strong ties to Western nations, particularly the United States, China's ambitions are clear. The threat of military action. As China continues to increase its military presence around Taiwan, looms large. In recent months, the situation has become even more precarious, with Taiwan's government continuing to resist pressure to unify. The Chinese government has stepped up its rhetoric, warning of severe consequences if Taiwan moves toward formal independence. The West, led by the United States, has been increasingly involved in supporting Taiwan, providing military aid and bolstering defenses. However, this only further inflames tensions, with China accusing the United States and its allies of meddling in its internal affairs. What makes this situation so dangerous is the potential for a military conflict. If China were to invade Taiwan, the repercussions would not only be catastrophic for the region but for the entire world. The United States, bound by its commitment to defend Taiwan under the Taiwan Relations Act, would likely intervene, potentially leading to a direct confrontation between the two largest economies in the world. This could escalate into a global conflict, with allies of both sides drawn into the fray. The economic fallout of such a conflict would be devastating, considering how integral Taiwan is to the global semiconductor supply chain. A war over Taiwan could plunge the world into an economic crisis of unimaginable scale. But Taiwan is just one part of the larger picture of chaos in Asia. The region is also dealing with a range of other security challenges. In the South China Sea, China's territorial claims have sparked numerous disputes with neighboring countries, including the Philippines, Vietnam, and Malaysia. Beijing has constructed artificial islands in the disputed waters, turning them into military outposts. These actions have not only angered Southeast Asian nations but also raised concerns for global shipping routes. As the South China Sea is one of the most important trade routes in the world, the situation in Hong Kong is another flashpoint in China's push for regional dominance. Since the 2019 protests, Hong Kong has seen a significant erosion of its political freedoms. The implementation of the controversial national security law has further curtailed the autonomy of the once semi-independent region. Many pro-democracy activists have been arrested, and freedoms of speech and assembly are now severely restricted. The international community has largely condemned China's actions, but Beijing's iron grip over Hong Kong shows no signs of loosening. In 2025, this could reach a boiling point as more protests emerge, and the global backlash intensifies. Beyond China, Asia is also witnessing increasing instability in several other countries. In Myanmar, the military junta has continued its brutal crackdown on pro-democracy activists since its coup in 2021. The country is now embroiled in a full-scale civil war, with multiple ethnic armed groups fighting the military regime. The humanitarian crisis is worsening, and the international community has largely failed to address the issue, allowing the junta to hold power and suppress dissent. In India, the world's largest democracy, tensions between the Hindu nationalist government and minority Muslim populations have been rising. Under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, the country has seen an increase in anti-Muslim rhetoric and policies, such as the Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA, which has sparked widespread protests. The growing religious divide, along with increasing economic inequality, could lead to further unrest in the coming years. The potential for internal conflict, particularly in areas like Kashmir, could escalate if the government fails to address these issues. Meanwhile, in the Korean Peninsula, tensions between North and South Korea remain high, with the North continuing its missile tests and provocations. Despite a brief period of diplomatic engagement under former U.S. President Donald Trump, relations between the two Koreas have reverted to hostilities. North Korea, led by Kim Jong-un, continues to push forward with its nuclear weapons program, which has drawn sharp criticism from the international community. The potential for a military conflict on the Korean Peninsula remains ever present, especially as the United States and its allies continue to strengthen their military presence in the region. The situation in Afghanistan is another ongoing issue for Asia. After the U.S. withdrawal in 2021, the Taliban quickly regained control of the country, plunging it into further instability. The humanitarian crisis continues to deepen as the Taliban struggles to govern effectively, and terrorist groups like ISIS-Khorasan have re-emerged in the region. The geopolitical vacuum left by the U.S. withdrawal has allowed other powers, such as China and Russia, to exert influence in the region, potentially leading to greater competition and proxy conflicts. In Southeast Asia, countries like Thailand, Cambodia, and Laos continue to grapple with authoritarian regimes that stifle opposition and suppress dissent. The military junta in Thailand has maintained control for years, while Cambodia has seen the rise of Prime Minister Hun Sen's increasingly repressive rule. In Vietnam, the Communist Party continues to control the country with an iron fist, limiting political freedoms and suppressing any form of opposition. The economic challenges facing Asia are equally daunting. While the region has been home to some of the world's fastest-growing economies, it is also facing a slew of economic problems that threaten to destabilize the region. The ongoing trade tensions between China and the United States have led to economic slowdowns, while the COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated existing inequalities. The rising cost of living, high youth unemployment rates, and income inequality are creating a volatile situation in many countries, fueling dissatisfaction with governments and leading to growing public unrest. In addition, the environmental challenges in Asia cannot be ignored. The region is facing some of the worst effects of climate change, with extreme weather events, rising sea levels, and devastating natural disasters becoming more frequent. Countries like Bangladesh, the Philippines, and Indonesia are particularly vulnerable, with millions of people living in low-lying areas that are at risk of flooding or being displaced. These environmental pressures, combined with political and economic instability, could lead to massive migration crises and exacerbate social unrest. As we look ahead to 2025, the potential for chaos in Asia is undeniable. The region faces an array of security, political, economic, and environmental challenges that could push many countries to the brink of collapse. The rise of authoritarianism. Ethnic and religious tensions. Territorial disputes. And economic crises are all contributing to an increasingly unstable environment. If these issues are not addressed, we could see the unraveling of entire nations and the destabilization of the region as a whole. In the face of this uncertainty, the international community must take a more active role in addressing these challenges. However, with the growing power of authoritarian regimes and the rise of populism, it's unclear whether any meaningful solutions will emerge. As Asia faces this potential chaos, the world will be forced to confront the consequences of a rapidly changing geopolitical landscape. And the future of the region, and the world, remains uncertain. As we look ahead to 2025, the future of the United States is marked by an air of uncertainty and turmoil, especially surrounding former President Donald Trump. Trump, a figure who has been central to American politics for nearly a decade, has had a tumultuous relationship with both the public and political elites. His health, combined with his ongoing influence in politics, could play a pivotal role in shaping the course of the nation. Trump's health has been a subject of widespread speculation ever since his time in office. The former president, now in his late 70s, has had a history of health issues that have led many to question whether he is physically and mentally fit to continue influencing American politics, especially as he continues to hint at a potential run for the presidency in 2024. His public appearances have revealed moments of erratic behavior, fueling concerns about his cognitive abilities and overall health. One of the most significant moments regarding Trump's health came during his presidency when he contracted COVID-19 in October 2020. His diagnosis and subsequent hospitalization raised questions about the severity of his condition, especially considering his age and weight. Despite being treated with experimental drugs and receiving care at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Trump downplayed the seriousness of the virus, presenting a mixed message to the public. The event not only highlighted concerns about his physical health but also underscored his approach to managing public health crises, which many critics argued was reckless and dismissive of scientific expertise. Trump's medical history has been further scrutinized in the years following his presidency. In 2021, as speculation about his health and a potential 2024 presidential bid increased, Trump's doctors released a statement claiming that he was in excellent health. However, many questioned the transparency of these reports, noting that Trump had a history of being secretive about his medical records during his time in office. Additionally, his diet, which was often described as unhealthy, and his lack of physical activity raised further concerns. Trump's weight, combined with his age, places him at a higher risk for various health issues, including heart disease, diabetes, and other chronic conditions that could affect his ability to serve in office. What makes this situation even more complicated is the psychological and mental health aspects of Trump's public persona. During his presidency, there were numerous instances where Trump exhibited behavior that many psychologists and mental health professionals deemed concerning. His impulsive decision-making, erratic tweets, and frequent outbursts were often described as signs of a deeper instability. While some attributed his behavior to his personality traits, others raised concerns about the mental toll that being in the highest office in the land may have taken on him. For example, Trump's handling of the 2020 election results and his refusal to accept defeat, culminating in the January 6 Capitol riot, showcased a disregard for the democratic process and raised questions about his mental state. The fact that Trump clung to the idea that the election was stolen despite a lack of evidence, and encouraged his supporters to take action, pointed to an individual who, at the very least, was emotionally unfit to handle the presidency in the later stages of his tenure. In the aftermath of the Capitol riot, Many began to wonder whether Trump's health, both physical and mental, was indeed a threat to the stability of the country. As 2025 approaches, Trump's health will undoubtedly remain a major point of discussion, particularly as he continues to pursue political influence. If Trump decides to run for president again, questions surrounding his physical and mental fitness will likely become a central issue. Supporters of Trump argue that he is as capable as ever, citing his ability to energize his base and his continued influence within the Republican Party. Critics, however, believe that his health could be a significant liability, both in terms of his ability to carry out the duties of the presidency and the potential for a political crisis if his health were to deteriorate further during his term. But Trump's health is not just an issue for his supporters and detractors. It's an issue that affects the entire political landscape. If Trump's health deteriorates to the point where he is no longer able to function as a viable candidate or leader, it could send shockwaves through the Republican Party, which has become increasingly tied to his persona. The GOP, at this point, is deeply divided. On one side, there are staunch Trump loyalists who view him as the future of the party. On the other side, there are Republicans who have grown weary of his polarizing influence and are ready for a new direction. Should Trump's health become a factor in the 2024 election, it could lead to a scramble for leadership within the Republican Party. Politicians like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and others who have aligned themselves with Trump but have attempted to carve out their own identities could emerge as strong contenders. This internal battle could deepen the fractures within the Republican Party and set the stage for a more chaotic and unpredictable election season. The question of Trump's health also raises issues related to the 25th Amendment, which provides a legal mechanism for the removal of a sitting president in the event of incapacity. While many believe that Trump's health is not an immediate concern for his ability to function, the possibility of a sudden health crisis that incapacitates him cannot be ruled out. If he were to win the 2024 election and subsequently face health challenges that impede his ability to serve, the issue of presidential succession could once again be thrust into the spotlight, sparking debates over the processes in place for dealing with such situations. Looking beyond the 2024 election, Trump's health could have lasting implications on his legacy and the future of American politics. His time in office was marked by divisive policies, an impeachment, and a deeply polarized country. If Trump's health declines further, it could affect how history remembers him, especially as scholars and political analysts begin to evaluate his presidency in a more objective light. Will he be seen as a figure who altered the course of American politics? Or will his health struggles ultimately overshadow his impact? Moreover, the ongoing political climate in the United States is increasingly marked by division, and Trump's role in that divide cannot be overstated. His rhetoric and actions during his presidency, from the border wall to the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, continue to resonate with millions of Americans, whether or not Trump remains active in politics. His legacy will undoubtedly influence future elections and shape the political discourse for years to come. In conclusion, Donald Trump's health will remain a critical factor in the American political landscape, particularly as we move toward 2025 and beyond. If he chooses to re-enter the political arena in 2024, his physical and mental well-being will undoubtedly be a central topic of conversation. His health will have far-reaching implications, not only for his ability to run for office but also for the future of the Republican Party and the broader state of American politics. As the nation braces for what could be a chaotic few years, one thing is certain: the question of Trump's health will be at the heart of the political discourse in the United States. Throughout history, the health of political leaders has often played a critical role in shaping the destiny of nations. In many cases, a leader's declining health has been a catalyst for political crises, power struggles, and shifts in national direction. The story of such leaders is filled with moments of uncertainty, with their deteriorating health sometimes leading to unexpected outcomes. Looking at the past, we can find several compelling examples of how a leader's failing health directly impacted their leadership and their nation's political trajectory. One of the most significant and often cited examples is that of Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States. Roosevelt, known for his role in leading the nation through the Great Depression and World War II, saw his health begin to decline rapidly during his fourth term in office. After suffering from polio in his youth, Roosevelt had dealt with physical limitations throughout his presidency. But it wasn't until the final years of his time in office that his health issues became apparent to the public. By the time of his final term, Roosevelt's health had severely deteriorated. He had gained weight. His energy levels had dropped. And his physical appearance showed the toll of his suffering. However, Roosevelt maintained his public image as a strong leader, continuing to manage the country's efforts during World War II. His declining health, however, was increasingly noticeable, and his ability to lead was questioned by some in his inner circle. Despite his physical condition, Roosevelt's death in April 1945 from a cerebral hemorrhage came as a shock to the nation. The U.S. had lost a towering figure who had guided the country through two of the most significant crises of the 20th century. But his failing health had already left the country vulnerable to uncertainty. The immediate aftermath of Roosevelt's death brought a shift in American leadership. Vice President Harry S. Truman was thrust into the presidency during the final months of World War II. Truman, although inexperienced in foreign policy, was faced with the monumental task of ending the war and making critical decisions regarding the post-war world. The sudden passing of Roosevelt and his declining health in the years leading up to it had left a leadership vacuum, which Truman had to fill quickly and decisively. Roosevelt's health struggles led to a situation where a less prepared leader had to take charge during one of the most crucial moments in world history, demonstrating the fragile relationship between a leader's health and their country's political future. Another historical example is Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom during World War II. Churchill's leadership was pivotal during the war, as he inspired the British people to stand firm against Nazi Germany. However, as the war raged on, Churchill's health began to deteriorate. The stress of war, long hours, and his advanced age took a toll on his physical and mental well-being. His infamous smoking habit, along with his irregular sleep schedule, contributed to a series of health problems, including strokes, which left him less effective as a leader during his later years. Churchill's declining health became evident in the 1950s, during his second term as Prime Minister. The most notable health scare came in 1953 when Churchill suffered a severe stroke that left him partially incapacitated for several months. Despite this, he chose not to step down from his position and, instead, continued to serve as Prime Minister. This decision raised concerns about his ability to carry out the duties of his office. His illness had obvious effects on his decision-making and leadership, with many of his colleagues questioning whether he was still the best person to lead the country through the post-war challenges. Despite these concerns, Churchill continued to remain in power until his retirement in 1955. Churchill's decline in health also mirrored the changing political landscape in the UK. His stroke and subsequent recovery led to a diminished ability to perform the daily duties required of a prime minister. The country, dealing with post-war reconstruction and shifting political realities, needed new leadership. After Churchill's retirement, the Conservative Party faced a generational shift, with younger leaders like Anthony Eden stepping into the political arena. The decline in Churchill's health played a significant role in this transition, as it was no longer just about political ideology but also the ability to effectively govern. Helmut Kohl, the long-serving Chancellor of Germany, offers yet another example of how a leader's failing health affected their ability to govern. Kohl was the Chancellor from 1982 to 1998. Overseeing the reunification of East and West Germany, Kohl was considered a giant in European politics. Respected for his role in bringing together a divided Germany and playing a key role in the formation of the European Union. However, as Kohl grew older, his health became a concern. In the years following his time as Chancellor, Kohl's health began to deteriorate. In the early 2000s, he suffered a series of strokes that left him physically weakened. By the time he died in 2017, Kohl had been largely absent from public life due to his health problems. His decline marked the end of an era in German politics, as Kohl's influence had been so dominant that his absence left a void in the political landscape. Kohl's declining health, much like Churchill's, raised concerns about the future of his party and the direction of the country. His stroke-related illnesses and eventual retreat from public life demonstrated the difficulty in maintaining political dominance as one ages. Despite his earlier successes, Kohl's health struggles were a stark reminder that leadership, even in the most established political figures, can be limited by the frailty of the human body. Kohl's retirement and health problems led to a shift in leadership, with figures like Gerhard Schroeder emerging as successors, changing the political dynamic in Germany. The story of political leaders with declining health is not just about the individuals themselves but also the larger political systems they represent. When a leader's health declines, it can trigger a ripple effect, impacting not only their own political career but also the political environment around them. This was the case with Ferdinand Marcos in the Philippines. Marcos ruled the country with an iron fist for over 2 decades. But his rule came to an abrupt end in 1986 after his health began to fail. Plagued by health issues and rumors about his deteriorating condition, Marcos's regime became unstable. His health issues were compounded by political opposition. And after fleeing the country, his health problems prevented him from ever returning to power. The health of a leader can often be the tipping point that leads to their downfall. As in the case of Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Mobutu had ruled the country for over 30 years. But his health, particularly in the final years of his rule, began to deteriorate. Suffering from prostate cancer, Mobutu's leadership weakened, and his health became symbolic of the broader decay within the Zairean state. Mobutu was eventually ousted in 1997, marking the end of his long and controversial rule. His health, which had once been a symbol of power, became a symbol of his decline and the unraveling of his regime. These stories underscore the reality that political leadership and health are intrinsically linked. A leader's health can impact their decision-making, their ability to govern effectively, and even the future of the political system they represent. The decline of leaders like Roosevelt, Churchill, and Kohl illustrates how health crises can have far-reaching consequences, both for the leaders themselves and for the nations they govern. In the case of contemporary leaders, the trend of declining health among those in power remains as relevant as ever. As we look to the future, particularly in the case of leaders like Donald Trump, whose health will be a significant issue in the coming years, we must consider the broader implications of a leader's health on their political legacy and their country's stability. Political leadership is not just about ideology or power, it is about the capacity to govern, which can often be hindered by the inevitable decline of the human body. As we move forward into the future, the question of a leader's health will continue to shape the political landscape in ways that we may not yet fully understand. As we witness the unfolding of global events, it becomes increasingly clear that the intersection of health and leadership is not a trivial matter. The lives of political leaders are deeply intertwined with the well-being of the nations they lead. And their decline, whether due to illness, aging, or other factors, can have significant consequences not only for their own futures but also for the political structures that they oversee. As we've seen in the stories of past leaders like Franklin D. Roosevelt, Winston Churchill, Helmut Kohl, and others, a leader's failing health can spark political crises, alter the trajectory of nations, and even lead to a change in the global balance of power. The health of a political leader often serves as a bellwether for the stability of their nation. When a leader's health declines, it can create uncertainty, erode public confidence, and cause disarray within political institutions. Whether through abrupt leadership transitions, power struggles, or the emergence of new political figures, the effects of a leader's deteriorating health are far-reaching. The sudden death of a leader, like Roosevelt's passing, can leave a vacuum that the nation may not be prepared for, leading to shifts in political strategy and global influence. Conversely, the slow erosion of a leader's health, as seen in Churchill's case, can give rise to questions about their ability to continue governing effectively, forcing political parties and governments to navigate the delicate balance between loyalty to the leader and the practical needs of the country. The story of declining health among political leaders is also one that raises questions about how we view leadership itself. In many cases, a leader's health challenges reveal vulnerabilities not just in the individual but in the entire system of governance. While we often place our trust in the strength and fortitude of our leaders, we must also recognize that they are human, subject to the same physical and mental limitations that affect us all. This recognition should be an opportunity for reflection, as it highlights the importance of building political systems that are resilient in the face of uncertainty and able to adapt quickly to changing circumstances. As we look to the future, the stories of leaders with declining health will continue to shape the political landscape. The political futures of figures like Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and others will be closely scrutinized, not just for their political ideologies or their influence on the world stage, but for their ability to lead effectively in the face of potential health challenges. The global political environment is already undergoing significant changes, with rising tensions in various regions, the erosion of traditional power structures, and an increasing demand for new types of leadership. The health of those at the helm will play a pivotal role in determining how these challenges are addressed, and whether the leaders in question will be able to navigate these turbulent times. The decline of leadership can also act as a catalyst for change. As the world grapples with political upheavals, economic crises, and social unrest, there is a growing recognition that the era of strongman leaders and centralized power is fading. A new wave of leadership, characterized by transparency, collaboration, and a focus on long-term stability, may be on the horizon. The health of current and future leaders may play a crucial role in ushering in this new era, as it may prompt a re-evaluation of how leadership is structured and the ways in which power is distributed. The ongoing political uncertainty of the early 2020s, combined with the rapid pace of technological advancement, has given rise to a more interconnected and complex world. In this environment, the health of political leaders will be a key factor in determining whether nations can successfully navigate the challenges ahead. Leaders who are physically and mentally fit to lead will be better positioned to respond to crises, make informed decisions, and implement policies that promote long-term prosperity. Those who are unable to perform at their best due to declining health may find themselves struggling to maintain control, as political instability can quickly take root. Moreover, the health of leaders has an undeniable impact on public trust. In today's age of social media and constant information flow, The health of political figures is under constant scrutiny. Any signs of frailty or incapacity are often magnified, leading to speculation and, in some cases, a loss of confidence in their ability to lead. This loss of trust can have a domino effect, undermining the legitimacy of the entire political system. When a leader's health begins to fail, it may also signal a need for institutional reform, as the system should be prepared for leadership transitions, even when they are unexpected or unplanned. In this context, it is vital for nations to establish systems that prioritize the well-being of their leaders, ensuring that they have the necessary support and resources to maintain their health while also preparing for leadership transitions in the event of a health crisis. Political systems should also embrace a more collaborative and decentralized approach to governance, where decision-making is not solely reliant on one individual. This will allow for more flexibility and stability in times of uncertainty, ensuring that even when a leader's health falters, the nation remains on a steady course. The unpredictable nature of politics in the 21st century, coupled with the rapid advancements in medicine and healthcare, makes it even more crucial for leaders to maintain their health, both for their own sake and for the sake of their countries. While we cannot predict the future with certainty, the stories of leaders like Roosevelt, Churchill, and others serve as poignant reminders that health is a critical factor in political leadership. As we move forward, the health of our political leaders will continue to play a central role in shaping the world around us. We must be prepared for the challenges and opportunities that will arise from this, ensuring that we are ready for whatever the future holds. The future is undeniably uncertain. But one thing is clear: the health of leaders will continue to have a profound impact on the political world. As we look ahead, we must recognize the importance of resilience, adaptability, and preparation in the face of health challenges. By doing so, we can ensure that the leadership of the future will be able to effectively navigate the complex and rapidly changing world in which we live.